Welcome to the Plan Solutions Incorporated podcast, where we give facts and insight on the latest happenings in the world of economics, financial markets, and personal finance. Plan Solutions provides advice on a variety of financial topics, including investment management, tax preparation and planning, and retirement planning. Chase has 25 years of experience in the financial industry, holds a certified financial planner and chartered financial analyst designations, and has earned a master's degree in taxation and a doctorate in business administration. Chase has a passion for helping clients down the path toward their financial goals. And I'm Jason LaChance. On this episode, we're going to be discussing artificial intelligence investing, the difficult conversations, money, and mortality, summertime income, and a look at the Plan Solutions Incorporated Bulletin Board. And if you have yet to subscribe to the Personal Financial Review, the content we discuss here on the podcast, please email Katie, that's Katie, at plansolutions.com, and get subscribed today. Mr. Armour, how are we, good sir?
Doing well. Surviving the, triple digit plus heat here in Sacramento, but looks like it's going to be cooling off for the next week or so. So that'll be a good reprieve.
Yes, we need. Every time I'm thinking, oh, we're going to get a little dip in the temperature. It lasts for about 10 minutes. So, well, we got some great topics we're going to discuss. So let's dive right into artificial intelligence investing. This is a really great thing to point out. I know that, obviously artificial intelligence, a hot button. I do utilize some of the technology in the work that I do with, multimedia production. But investing, this seemed like a really big potential thing that could, upend a lot of stuff, for lack of a better word. But as of now, it doesn't seem like it indicates it will.
Well, it's definitely an area where there's a lot of potential, right? And where there's potential, there's a lot of excitement. There's an old saying on Wall Street: you buy the rumor and you sell the news, right? And so in a way, the artificial intelligence changing everything and making everybody more productive and increasing profitability and all of that is still definitely in the rumor stage. But that's the time when investors really try and jump in, right, to get ahead of the curve. And so there's been a lot of talk about it. A lot of companies that, are somehow tied to AI have done really well the first half of this year. And so it's created a lot of questions about, how do you invest? How do you have exposure to artificial intelligence? And what we're pointing out here is something that maybe a lot of people don't completely realize, that, as of, July, the top 5 companies in the S&P 500 are Microsoft, Apple, NVIDIA, Amazon, and Alphabet, or otherwise Google. Those companies make up 20% of the entire S&P 500, and each one of them has or has a partnership with some type of AI platform or some type of AI investment. You have the Copilot and ChatGPT for Microsoft, Siri for Apple, Alexa for Amazon, Gemini for Google, and then if you throw in NVIDIA creates and sells a lot of the hardware that's really been integral to a lot of the AI development that's been happening. So, any investor, even if they're just an indexed investor, is going to have a fair amount of exposure to artificial intelligence. And even if you go further down the list, you have Facebook or Meta, really, or Tesla, which really also have their own artificial intelligence investments.
Again, with the work that I do, I've definitely been intrigued by the AI technology. So I've done a little bit of, diving into different things and potentially how to utilize it. And it is fascinating. And in some of the business workings that I've had with some people, they're utilizing it towards medical stuff to be able to create greater records of monitoring patients if they suffer from, say, diabetes, when their spikes are, what they ate. So it's so far what I've seen is a lot of in data collection, really streamlining that and kind of giving results a little bit quicker or a little bit more concise.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of exploration as to, how it can be used, what will be the most effective uses. And that's good because it's determining different markets, like you said, whether, helping software engineers program more effectively, whether, better diagnosing, different medical conditions, or a lot of other places, even within the consulting realm, of how to streamline processes and things.
Mm.
Um, but of course, in a way, this is a lot like the dot-com era in the early 90s, where, you had a lot of companies that, yeah, they had web pages, right? And they, kind of use that for branding and things online, maybe some marketing. And it was projected that, oh, through the internet, it's going to, allow companies to do all this marketing and build. And it didn't really happen that way.
Mm.
Finding the product or service revenue was a pretty big leap, and a lot of companies were not able to make that leap, and a lot of ways that people envisioned the internet being used just really were not effective when it came to making that jump of, okay, bringing in real revenues and profits. It really wasn't until a few companies were able to master the advertising
Yeah.
angle of it, right? And be able to sell advertising efficiently, cheaper, and more targeted, and really, continue to develop down those lines to take it to such an extreme, such an extreme point where it was very successful and brought in a lot of revenue and a lot of profits. And now a lot of those companies are some of the biggest companies out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So we're still kind of in the early stage of AI, and the question is, okay, what companies, if any, will be able to, cross that chasm, if you will, and turn this into some type of real business benefit?
yeah. Well, with that, of course, comes the investment in building the technology. So, what are we seeing as far as investment in AI technology?
Yeah, huge investment. I mean, billions and billions of dollars a quarter going in. Arguably, I mean, there's been trillions invested really in a fairly short time period, which, when you get to, talking about that amount of money, that's the overall value of some of the biggest companies, or, the equivalent to, like the federal deficit going into this type of, of investment, research, hardware, equipment, all of these things to try and figure out what it can do, which is great. And because when you have that type of investment, you typically will see a lot of progress within a short time period. And I think depending on who you are, some people would argue that a lot of these large language models have made that type of progress, just in terms of what they're able to do and understand and interact. Other people would argue, well, yeah, that's great. They're doing that thing a little better, but what do we really do with that thing, right? What makes it valuable? And so again, that's the big jump that needs to be made, because at some point, just like during the dot-com era, there was huge amounts of money being invested in the internet and those types of technologies. And then eventually people came to the point like, okay, we're not investing anymore until we can see how this can actually be profitable. And that obviously, led to the early 2000s, a really difficult time period for the technology industry. So it will be interesting to see if we see a shakeout like that within artificial intelligence, as some of these leading companies that are making big investments maybe decide to pull back until they can really determine what is that business model that's going to give them some return on that investment.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it kind of reminds me of a situation. I'm working with someone who's working on producing multiple TV shows, and it's getting the investment to just simply generate proof of concept here in this, and it seems that it's that kind of same situation. Okay, we're going to pump money in, and out of all the options that we're going for, a few of them are going to hit and take off.
Yeah, yeah, and in a way, it's kind of even a third, order of thinking, in that, arguably they've proven the proof of concept, which is they can build the tool,
Mm.
but now they got to show what can you build with that tool, right? That then will create the goods, services, productivity, whatever it is that will create that value. So we're kind of at the first stage of what really is a three-stage. We have these tools now. What can we do with them? What can we build? What are they good for? And then once you get that, okay, then how do you take that concept and make it profitable, make it into a real business, as opposed to something that, still is fairly speculative as to what the value may be. And if it's like the dot-com bubble, I mean, a lot of the high-flying companies that were, the darlings early that everyone thought would be successful really didn't make it. And some of them that people thought were very unlikely did. I mean, of all the e-commerce companies, who would have thought the company that focused on books was Amazon was going to become the big leader, right? But they were able to solve a lot of those problems while focusing on books, and then be able to apply that knowledge and then scale to other areas. We saw a lot of the early, social networking companies didn't make it, and Facebook really IPO'd very late in that whole cycle, but ended up being the winner because they were able to solve some of those problems better than other companies were. And while other companies were still, focused on building their network and attracting more people to their site, Facebook was able to pivot and really focus on, okay, how do we monetize this? How do we make it profitable?
Yep.
So there's still a lot to be seen in that area to see where, this AI investing is gonna turn out. On the bright side, as we started at the top, if you have these, 5 to 7 companies that are really large companies that most people, at least if they're in a diversified fund, will have some exposure to. Those companies, not only they give you some exposure to the artificial intelligence investing, but it's also just one portion of their business. Right. So if artificial intelligence really takes off and it is the big boom that people think it can be, that's a way that most people will participate. But if it doesn't, it ends up being, something that people drop a lot of resources in, and maybe it's, not, maybe there's some bigger challenges down the road. It's not, right around the corner, or it's just not something that's going to completely come together as people hope. You still have these other businesses to help buffet that impact.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Mr. Armour, anything else you want to add to this section before we move to the difficult conversation?
Well, I think, a lot of these kind of pure play artificial intelligence companies, typically really small companies with a lot of, just speculative value, but not any real substance. I think people should be really careful of those. Again, it's just like the dot-com period. If you just tried to pick a company with .com next to its name and think this is going to be the next one, the chances that you would have picked one of the winners would be really low. And the chances that you picked a company that, wasn't able to keep up, or went out of business would be pretty high.
Yeah. All right, here it is, the difficult conversations, money and mortality. And I think this is a thing that it hits all of us, especially those of us who, have spouses, families, and what we might want to leave behind, and hopefully how it's managed properly so that it, the recipients, maybe if we leave something behind, get the best value out of it.
Yeah, these are always tough conversations. It's tough for me to bring it up, right? It's obviously tough for people to talk amongst themselves. It's just not the type of thing that we want to think about. But so often, money is just an issue that a lot of people, prefer not to think about. It's kind of in the background. They don't want to necessarily bring it up with other people. And then obviously our own mortality or the mortality of our loved ones is something that people don't want to think about. So we tend to kind of bury our head in the sand. But I just seen so many cases where it's just so important to have, regular conversations about finances, and then, as that kind of blends into mortality over the long run. So as you said, yeah, especially among spouses, too often, I mean, this is something I've just seen throughout my career, and maybe it's just one of those anecdotal things that's not, 100% accurate, but it seems like so often there's kind of 3 types of couples, right? There's one where both of them don't like dealing with the finances, and that usually doesn't work out real well, right? Because no one's being proactive, no one's taking control, and a lot of times, things can get missed, opportunities can be missed, or risks can not be addressed. And then there's the other type where both are very want to be very proactive and involved in the finances, and that can work, but it also can be difficult, right? Because they may have different opinions, and they both have strong opinions, and they want to, kind of move in one direction or the other. But what you most often see, and what I've found, tends to be kind of the right blend, is you have one partner who's really into the finances and wants to make sure things are on track, and then you have the one that focuses on other things, right? Because I mean, obviously, there's so many other aspects to life, and people are good at different things. And so a lot of times that can be healthy where, one spouse handles the financial issues and the other, has more expertise, skill, knowledge in other areas, and they handle that. But in that case, it's just so important that there's this ongoing, communication of, what the strategies are, what the perspective or plan is, and have an understanding of if that spouse that handles the money were to pass away or become incapacitated or something. Now what? Right? Having that contingency plan is so important, because it's just too often that we get pulled into situations that are kind of a mess, and it takes a lot of unraveling, and in some cases create some significant costs because it's the spouse that handled the finances that went first, and now the other one is really kind of out there twisting in the wind trying to figure things out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think one of the important things that you really bring to light here is, as these conversations are really tough, is to bring in a third party to the situation to help work that through, at least to show an execution of the plan. I know I've seen it in my lifetime. I know you have, of people that you've worked with and that you've known, where maybe the leader in the finance department of that relationship tends or could be the first one to pass, and so needing to educate the other individual on how then to execute that plan that is laid out.
Yeah, sometimes it is good to have a third party that just can bring up those important topics, without creating emotional baggage, because they're kind of outside of the relationship, or it can help communicate. Right? It may be that the person who's very knowledgeable and skilled at handling the finances and has done a fine job, but if they don't do it for a living and it's not something they practice, then are they effective at communicating that to their spouse, right? Or is it something that it's just getting lost in translation? That also, I think, can be really important when dealing with the next generation, right? Yeah. That some people they don't want to talk about their money with their kids or grandkids. They prefer the financial privacy, and don't really want to have those discussions about end of life issues. A lot of times the younger generation doesn't want to hear it. They just don't want to think about it. But chances are, at some point a time will come when the next generation is going to have to step in and provide some support. And so having some understanding of what's wanted, what the expectations are, what the financial resources are available, and the type of strategy being used can be important. And a lot of times, especially there, a third party to kind of help, maybe cross that divide between the generational perspectives on money can also be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of the next generation, let's jump into summertime income. I mean, summer is a perfect job for working age children to earn some spending money and really learn that value of earning a dollar. I know I've been to many outings where there are young folks that were taking a summer job that were the ones there that were, providing the goods and services. So it's a wonderful time to really start to educate the youth on responsible spending and earning and savings.
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, I was visiting a family member just yesterday, and they had a young man over from the neighborhood who had used his, saved up to buy a pressure washer and some buckets and things, and goes around the neighborhood detailing people's cars, to just basically started his own little business to make some summertime income. And a lot of other cases, people go and they'll take jobs, working at a summer camp for even younger kids, or, fast food or things like that, which I know you and I have done. And so it's a great time to, not only get some experience and maybe, build a network and save for the future, but, to take advantage of some investment opportunities that are available. One of them that just really stands out is if younger workers have earned income, they have the ability to fund a Roth IRA. And since Roth IRAs grow tax deferred and if used, for qualified retirement distribution, then tax free. And so a young person that, invests, especially if they invest aggressively and has many decades for that money to grow, not only can really increase the value and get a big head start on retirement, but also get those tremendous tax advantages.
Yeah. And Is there age restrictions upon that? Do you have to be over 18 to get into a Roth IRA, or at that point, are you looking at a custodial account? What are some of the restrictions that they might face?
Yeah, if you're under 18, you can still contribute. I mean, really at any age, if you have earned income, you can contribute to a Roth IRA. But if you're under 18, so you're not the age of majority, then yes, it would be a custodial account with a parent or guardian or something like that, listed on the account to help make decisions. So in that way, it's kind of a lot like other types of his custodial accounts. For example, the UTMA, or Uniform Transfer to Minors Act account, which those are really designed for individuals under age 21 to have a custodian. Now, those accounts can also create some benefits. They're not don't have the quite as good a tax status as Roth IRAs, but they're also not necessarily designed to be retirement accounts, so they don't have the limitations of being able to access the money earlier. And depending if the income on those accounts are under a certain threshold, then it can be tax-free or taxed at a very low rate. So it still can provide some tax benefits, although they're somewhat muted compared to a longer-term retirement vehicle like a Roth IRA.
Yeah. Well, but with the Roth IRA, it still comes with the age of being able to withdraw. What is that, around 60? I can't remember what it was offhand.
Yeah, so Roth IRAs, to take a qualified, penalty-free, tax-free distribution, the individual needs to be age 59 and a half.
Okay.
There are some exceptions to that. First-time home buyer, use it for your or your dependent's education. Some other ways to get money out of a Roth in a more tax-advantaged rule. But generally, the idea going into it is, you're investing for the long term for retirement. Whereas the UTMA don't have those restrictions, so there's more flexibility. And like I said, there can be some tax benefits, although there also can be some tax drawbacks. One of them is called the kiddie tax, where if that UTMA account is really large and kicking out a lot of income, that income could end up being taxed at the parent's tax rate. So it's, there are some important considerations. People should look and explore their options and the pros and cons before committing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know that's maybe not a common occurrence, but I've known a few people through my work that were childhood stars, and then they ended up broke, and it was a lot of not knowing these kind of things that would impact them. So there is always some importance there to examine all the options, of course. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the value of good professional advice goes a long way, especially when you see those types of situations, and you realize that's what was lacking, right? That's the piece that was missing between those that maybe earn, a fair amount of money early on and, are really successful and have this strong financial foundation for the rest of their life, and those that end up broke, like you said.
Yep. All right. Well, let's jump on over to the Plan Solutions Incorporated office bulletin board. We got one item pinned up there. What do we got, Mr. Armour?
Yep. So we recently sent out the registration forms for our annual charity golf tournament. It's the Harlan D. Wood and Debbie Dravinga Memorial Cancer Charity Golf Tournament. So we've still got a while. It's not till Friday, October 11th. So still several months out, but we want to make sure people can mark their calendars and, start planning ahead and maybe inviting their golf buddies or putting together a foursome so that we can fill up the tournament. We're real excited this year. We're back on the North Course. It'll be a 1 p.m. shotgun with 5:30 dinner. So it should just be a great day of golf, and hopefully, compared to the weather lately, where it's 103 and 104, and the last thing you want to do is be on the golf course. Hopefully, we can look forward to October when maybe it'll be much more mild and a nice, more relaxing day.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And if people are interested, they just call and contact the office, correct?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they can call and talk to, Caitlin, Michelle, Candace. They'll all have all the information, be able to point them in the right direction.
Excellent. And that information, of course, is in the podcast description if you are interested in participating or even just making a donation. Well, Mr. Armour, anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up this edition of the Plan Solutions Incorporated podcast?
I think we covered it. Yeah. Just busy golf season, a lot of charity golf tournaments going on and things. So that's been fun. Been learning some things that we can apply to our tournament from some other tournaments I've been volunteering with, and hopefully we can put together another good year and make some money for some worthwhile causes.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And we thank you all for listening to the podcast. If it's your first time, please hit that subscribe button on whatever platform you're on. And if you haven't seen yet, you can watch the video on YouTube. What you'll see is you'll follow along to the Personal Financial Review as Chase and I have our conversation. All you need to do is search @Plan Solutions and you'll find the YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe to the Personal Financial Review, send Katie an email, katie@plansolutions.com, and get subscribed today.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast should not be construed as an offer to buy or sell any securities. The information may not be current, and Plan Solutions has no obligation to provide an updates or changes. Plan Solutions does not make any representation or warranty as to the accuracy or completeness of the statements or any information contained in this podcast or any liability therefor, including in respect of direct, indirect, or consequential loss or damage, is expressly disclaimed. Plan Solutions is not providing any financial, economic, legal, accounting, or tax advice in this podcast. In addition, the receipt of this podcast by any listener is not to be taken as constituting the giving of investment advice by any Plan Solutions associate or individual to that listener, nor to constitute such person a client of Plan Solutions. Any reference to a specific company or security does not constitute a recommendation to buy, sell, hold, or directly invest in the company or its securities. Market indexes are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. All price references and market forecasts correspond to the date of this podcast.
Plan Solutions is a registered investment advisory firm.